Welcome to another edition of Take 5. It is February 7th, 2012. It's Tuesday, very early Tuesday morning. We are in Luke chapter 14, verse 12. He said also to the man who had invited him, "When you give a dinner or a banquet, do not invite your friends or your neighbors or your relatives or rich neighbors, lest they also invite you in return and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed because they cannot repay you. For you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just." When one of those who reclined at table with him heard these things, he said to him, "Blessed is everyone who will eat bread in the kingdom of God." But he said to him, "A man once gave a great banquet and invited many. And at the time for the banquet he sent a servant to say to those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready.' But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said to him, 'I have bought a field and I must go out and see it. Please have me excused.' And another said, 'I have bought 5 yoke of oxen and I must go examine them. Please have me excused.' And another said, 'I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come.' So the servant came and reported these things to his master. Then the master of the house became angry and said to his servant, 'Go out quickly to the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in the poor and crippled and blind and lame.' And the servant said, 'Sir, what you commanded has been done, and still there is room.' And the master said to the servant, 'Go out to the highways and hedges, and compel people to come in, that my house may be filled. For I tell you, none of those men who are invited shall taste my banquet.'" Well, I think if you understand anything about what's been going on in Jesus' ministry at this time, this is a condemnation of the Jewish nation. They were the ones who had been invited, and they made all kinds of excuses for not responding to Jesus. But he did find some folks who did respond. See, the religious people didn't respond. They had their reasons. But lots of other people did. And they tended to be more in the poor and the crippled and the blind and the lame and in the masses. And you're going to see people that respond to Jesus, generally that's where they're going to be. It's not going to be the rich and famous. It's not going to be what we would consider sharp people. Jesus even said it's harder to get for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to go to heaven. So they don't appreciate the kingdom of God like poor people do, like the general crowds do, like people who are really hurting do. So I would encourage you, as you are reaching out to people in your evangelism, just reach out to everybody, but especially focus on those who are less fortunate. They're going to appreciate it a lot more. And I would just encourage you in your own daily life too, don't be looking for who you can impress. Look for who you can serve. You know, the first part of this verse, this passage we read today, it was a lengthy passage. It said, when you give a feast, you invite the poor and the crippled and the lame and the blind. You be like God is in the parable. You invite those. It says, they can't repay you. See, it says you're going to be repaid at the resurrection of the just. You just need to do some things in faith that God's going to repay you later. You're going to get eternally rewarded for that. Isn't that better than any temporary reward you would get anyway? So just look at what you can do for people. What good you can do for people that cannot pay you back. Alright? That's the challenge for you today. It's a challenge for me too. Let's do it and come back tomorrow for a very, very serious passage on the next edition. Take 5.